Welcome to the Pillar Podcast, a ministry of Pillar Seminary for contextual leadership. Our goal is to equip listeners to become better readers of Scripture and more skillful leaders in their local churches and ministries. If you would like to learn more about Pillar Seminary and sign up to receive exclusive content from Pillar's faculty, please visit pillarseminary.org.
Hey, everybody. I'm Dan. Welcome to another edition of the Pillar Podcast. We're so grateful for your presence here with us. Joining us this morning, we got a special treat. We have Manny Fernandez, an old seminary buddy of mine, and I'll tell you more about him here in just a minute and let him tell some of his story and then what he's up to in the world. Really, really fascinating to see what the Lord's doing. Manny, thanks for being here, buddy.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me. It's a blessing to be here.
Nice. That's wonderful. We also have Donnell with us and Daniel. Guys, thank you so much for being here. Appreciate your presence with us too. So let me give the brief introduction here, and then we'll talk you. Manny and I went to seminary together, Dallas Seminary. We overlapped for some of it. I can't quite remember what. What were the years you were there, Manny?
I was there from 2004 to 2008. So I think you were a couple of years ahead of me, maybe.
You did it right. Well, I took it a little slower, and so we overlapped for a number of years. I do remember we were on a soccer team together, right? Were we on the indoor team or the outdoor team?
The indoor team. I did the indoor.
So not the outdoor where Adam broke his leg. That was okay. That was crazy. Okay. So, Manny, if the audience wants to know, was a lot better soccer player than I was. I was always relegated to the goal, while all the missionary kids with the real soccer skills were playing. So I just
trying to picture Dan playing soccer.
Suffered abuses. Well, it was a lot like this when they would shoot it at me. So, no, it was a lot of fun. Yeah, appreciate you being here, Manny. Thank you. Let me read here the bio from your website. And then you can just kind of fill in the gaps and tell us, whatever else before we launch here. So you grew up as a missionary kid in Spain, where you gained a deep understanding of different cultures and experiences. And for 15 years, you were working with World Link. 5 of those years were overseas in Spain again. Then in 2018, you moved back from Spain, I guess, and were working as a student pastor, Central Bible Church here in the Metroplex, right? Is that Bedford or somewhere?
Actually, moved back from Spain in 2013. So we were there from 2008 to 2013 for 5 years. Came back, was still working with World Link, and then in 2018 stepped off to work for about 5 years in youth ministry, and then now I'm back with World Link. So
okay. And when did you come back to World Link?
Just came back in September. So it's been about 6 months or so since I've been back in this role, and it's been a whirlwind. I got brought back as the president of the organization.
Okay.
And this job is a lot more difficult than just being an employee in the organization or a missionary. And so I've taken on a lot of different jobs and tasks, but it's been a good fit. So I'm grateful to be where I'm at.
Excellent. All right. Before we get to more of that, you also are married to Jamie, and you have 5 children, right?
Yeah.
Ava, Asher, Nora, right. Josiah, and Eliza. And what's the age range there? What?
I've got 2 9-year-olds, a 6-year-old, a 4-year-old about to turn 4, and a 4-month-old. So
and a new president job, and you are really busy. That's
yeah.
Man, and also you don't sleep a lot. Daniel, how old's Cyrus?
He's going to be 6 months in 7 days.
Right.
Awesome.
Baby buddies. Way
That's
to go,
my first.
guys.
Very cool.
Yeah. That's awesome. Okay, so Manny, tell us a little bit about World Link, but it's your father that you took over for in this role, right? So
and just to clarify, he still continues to work with the organization. So he still is kind of in charge. We're in a transition period. It's not kind of, he still really is in charge. But it's like we're working on different projects. I'm working on building the infrastructure and the stability of the ministry for growth and for long-term focus. My dad is focused more on keeping the ministry going, doing what it's always done, until we kind of overtake it. And then at that point, then it's, he'll step back more at that point, but he doesn't want to take the foot off the gas until we're fully ready. So it's been a really good fit. He's continued things going on the field, continuing with opening up different fields that we're looking at opening. And I've been able to focus more on fundraising, developing relationships with churches, and kind of more of the administrative side of things here in the office. So,
yeah, man, it sounds like a really cool team. Is there a window for when he'll roll off and you'll roll on?
We have a tentative time frame. I'm not sure if we're going to end up doing that or not. It kind of depends on what the board ends up saying, and we're going to move forward cautiously. We just want to make sure that we're moving forward and that we're not rushing anything, and that we're ready to make the full transition when it's time. I'm not really in any rush to be in charge of all of it, because right now it is comfortable to have someone who's focusing on a lot of different aspects that I can focus on other things. And so I think the time will come when I have to make all the decisions, and I feel like when the Lord feels like it's that time, then we'll know. So
oh man, that's exciting.
It's a healthy succession model. Especially in the sense that you're not rushing and you're comfortable where you are. And if you don't meet the timeline, so what? Keep going.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
Well, I mean, it sounds like the work is, and this is great, I agree, the work is too important to mess up. And so this is worth doing slowly and keep things moving. That's really exciting. So let's get to the work. Tell us about World Link Ministries, the mission statement on the website: an evangelistic force training and deploying Christian leaders who are planting churches and saturating their regions with the gospel. So tell us how World Link Ministries got its start. What was the need that you guys saw that you could address with this ministry?
Yeah. My dad moved to the mission field with my mom back in '85. I was 3 years old at the time. So that lets you know I'm 41 years of age. For those of you who are trying to do the math, I'll just save you some time there. So we, when we were there, he was working at
where? There where?
I'm sorry, Madrid. I apologize. Okay. I think in Madrid, Spain, they were working. And my dad was focusing on a church, but just feeling Spain is known as kind of the graveyard of missionaries because of the fact that there's no physical persecution, but people are just so closed to the gospel. Even though a lot of it's a different dynamic. A lot of people think, well, it's a Catholic country. Well, even back then, less than 10% were practicing Catholics in Spain. And then recently, the Pope has met with the Catholic leaders of Spain saying, listen, your congregations have gone from 1,000 people down to 6 people. And they're starting to sell off properties left and right. So Spain is largely a secular country with Catholicism woven into the culture. But very, very few people have even ever opened a Bible. And very few people have even heard the gospel before. And so it's very, very close to the gospel. But Dad was focused on one church, and the average size church in Spain is about 80 people. And thinking, man, I could be here the rest of my time in Spain just focused on 80 people. That's not going to make a dent in reaching out to the 45 million people here in Spain who don't know about Christ. And we need to get after this quicker. We need to reach more people. And so he thought, well, if I train 10 other guys and they're all reaching 80 people, then we're going to 10x our reach just with those. Yeah, that's right. And so we focused on multiplication, and we started with 3 students. Year 1, by year 3, we had 12 students. And at that time, we were the second largest seminary in Spain with 12 students. And then we grew. Today, we've got about 150 students, and we've multiplied by being able to open up extensions in the different provinces. And the idea is that we open up in every province of Spain, and that proximity to people allows people to have access to the school that way. And so So we've been able to grow that way, but our focus all throughout is to train indigenous leaders who want to be pastors. We give them the seminary training through the Bible Training Center for Pastors curriculum, which in most cases is a 3-year program. In some places we put a little bit more into it, and it's a 4-year program. But in any case, we give that to them. And we also usually give them a stipend as well to help them to be in full-time ministry. And as a result, we've been able to mobilize quite a few people around the globe. We've got about 1,700 church planters that we're overseeing in 8 different countries around the world. And God's just exploding. In so many places, they start lots of churches. They're able to start lots of churches, and they grow beyond a house church very, very quickly. Even though they might meet in a house, they might have 150 to 200 people through multiple services coming out of someone's house. And so it's allowed for the gospel to just go far and wide a lot quicker and a lot more effectively. So.
Okay, so there's a lot there. I think I heard a couple keywords, and I want to get back to the curriculum to talk about how they receive their training. But you mentioned proximity. It seems to be near and dear to your heart. Proximity and indigenous leadership in these different countries. You move there, you train them there to let them go. Talk about that just for a minute before. It's a big difference from our training where we know, meet them in the cloud and are able to train them where they are. But it's a kind of apples and oranges here difference.
Yeah, and the students that we had a pastor who just went back in January, and he saw what we were doing. He said, "You guys aren't really educating people." And I said, "Yeah, we're educating." He said, "Well, hold on, let me finish." He said, "You're kind of more, it's training people to be church planters, and it's on the job training." I said, "Yeah, that's a better way to put it." Really, our focus isn't as much on the education of the people, but on equipping them to be able to do the work of evangelism and church planting. And so while the education is important, we want to make sure that we're mobilizing them. And a lot of our students are not, they may not have finished high school. They might have only had grade school. And so this is a new thing for a lot of them. But we're finding that when we discover these people, they're not waiting to have a seminary training to do ministry.
Right.
We're seeing people who are already starting a church because they read in the Bible that we're supposed to make disciples. So they go knock on doors, and then they have a Bible study that's turned into a church, and they have 50 people in a church, and they're pastors, but they haven't even had any formal training. And so we come alongside and say, well, why don't we strengthen your church with strong theological doctrine so that you have longevity in your church. And so that's where we're finding a lot of our students.
Okay, so guys, Daniel, it looks like you're about to say something. Go ahead.
I was just going to ask, so it sounds like the heart of the focus is training the leaders that will then go and make the disciples. And I'm just curious if World Link is involved on the back end of that, like the church planting itself. Do you guys keep the relationship going and help with that as well? Or can you talk about that?
It varies by country. And that's also part of the reason, just a quick side note, that for us, like in Cuba, online training isn't possible. We have 700 church planters students all throughout the country.
That's amazing.
And most of them don't have access to streaming video. And so we have to be close to them. We have to bring it to them there. In some places it works, but even so, because of their limited education, it takes away from that. So anyway, that's a side note. But and Daniel, I'm sorry, I lost my train of thought. Yeah, so it depends. Sometimes we are helping with the support that they need to establish churches. But that's one of the things that I'm working on trying to build, so that we have a better support system for our church planters. Up until now, the main focus has been train, send them out. And at times it's a little bit sink or swim, Most of them, though, are doing it while they're being trained. So we're able to mentor and disciple them while they're actually starting their church through the time that we're together.
Yeah.
And then by the time they finish in the program, they've already planted 2 or 3 churches. They've asked their questions. It changes their education experience a lot because they're asking questions that the people in their churches are asking them. And so they come and they say, yeah, well, what do we do about predestination, free will? Let's talk through that. And because I didn't know what to say when the people asked me in my church, and so we talked through those things. So it changes that education experience. Does that help, Daniel?
Yeah, that's
absolutely.
Donnell, you're going to say something.
Yeah, it's sort of a hybrid between Jesus's model of making disciples and Paul's model of making disciples.
Yeah.
Jesus kept them for 3 years and sent them, but Paul grabbed them, taught them, and sent them.
Off you go.
That's right.
And he kept training through his letters, right? His epistles. And so, that sounds great.
You may or may not know that we exist entirely from 2 different revenue streams. One is tuition revenue, and the other is from donations from supporters, generous supporters like many of you. We could not do what we do, including this podcast, which is a ministry of Pillar Seminary, without your generous support. We would ask you to prayerfully consider, if you haven't already, joining us, partnering with us, and supporting the work and the ministry that we do here in all of its forms at Pillar Seminary. You can find out more, and you can go online to give at pillarseminary.org/give. Yeah. So since we're pedagogues, I am interested in some of the mechanics of the training before we get to the church plant stuff, because the fruit of what you're doing is incredible, and I would like us to definitely end there. So you say, though, you have a curriculum that's pre-packaged, right? It's not your curriculum. It's available to others. So tell us about the curriculum itself, just briefly, please.
The Bible Training Center for Pastors is a curriculum that was put together by Dennis Mock, who is a graduate from Dallas Theological Seminary, who was a missionary, I believe, in Ethiopia. And he couldn't find any sort of very complete seminary training that he could give to people out on the field. And so he went about writing it, and he wrote a 10-volume series that's, the books are about this big, maybe about this thin. They're not. Some of them are a little bit thicker, but it's a 10-volume set which goes through all 66 books of the Bible, goes through 14 theological doctrines or 14 theologies, goes through preaching, missions, pastoral counseling. It's a complete set.
Seminary in a box,
and it's
almost.
That's right, and it's been translated, I think, into like 75 languages or something crazy.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, and it's very, very solid. But we thought, listen, if we can give that set with filled in blanks to a young pastor who wants to be a church planter, and they've got that set, that will be just a phenomenal foundation for anybody. I mean, we're not piecing together different classes along the way. They have a filled in set of notes that they can use throughout their seminary experience. And so it's, for us, has been super valuable. And we go through that. In some cases, like with our day program in Madrid, we have more of a formal seminary setting. There we go through it with them. That's right. We supplement, and we'll have it's a lot more robust than that curriculum, and because we have them for more time. Also, we partner with Kiev Theological Seminary in Ukraine, Manila School of the Bible, I believe is called, and then a seminary in Mexico as well, Mexico City, and in those different settings, we don't reinvent the wheel. There we have solid theological education. We partner with those seminaries, and we provide a church planting track for everybody who wants to go into full-time ministry. So
so that's not curriculum, that's your area, your track that you come in and do training.
That's right, in those settings.
Holy cow. Okay, so it sounds like in some settings you'll walk through with them, you'll supplement, you'll expand. Are there certain places where you just more or less say, here you go, call us if you need help? I mean, is it like
you mean with regards to the education?
Yeah. What?
No, because we want to ensure the quality of what's being done.
Right.
And
Good.
so wherever we start, we want to make sure that we're always looking for seven different factors when we go into any country. So we're looking to start in Nepal. My dad's traveling to Nepal here in a couple weeks to be able to begin interviewing students who would be a part of the program. And the goal is to get 60 students who would begin planting 180 churches over this next year, reaching to the 150 unreached people groups in Nepal. So that's one. We're looking at also beginning in Peru soon, and that those doors have opened up as well. We're looking to expand what we're doing in Mexico, et cetera. But our focus when we look for these 7 factors, we're looking for students. We want to make sure we have students. We want to make sure that we have people who can teach the curriculum.
Yep.
We want to make sure we have a location where we can meet. We need funding. We need a field supervisor. We need all these factors to be matured and to be fitting well together. And we also often look for opposition in some of these places as well. Spiritual opposition sometimes gives us an indication that this is a place that the enemy doesn't want us, and we begin to plow forward that way. So there's things that we look at, and then we evaluate all of them before we start in these different places. But
that's a pretty I guess a robust system infrastructure then that really does seem like it's designed to flourish. Can you give us? We've kind of been teased with a couple of these places. Where in the world are you? We began in Spain. We went from Spain, and we've opened in different places along the way, and for different reasons. Either sometimes the work has come to a stop for us, but the churches have continued on. So there's a lot of other countries where we've opened, but where we're currently active are in Spain, Mexico, and I've got a map here on the wall, so it's going to help me to remember. So Spain, Cuba, Mexico, Venezuela, Brazil, Ukraine, India, Philippines, and then opening up in Nepal here shortly. So unbelievable. Dean, were you about to say something?
Yeah. So Manny, if I'm a recent student, I just got out of Bible college or something. I'm in Nepal, I'm in Mexico, I'm in Ukraine, and I want to plant a church, and I want it to be through World Link. How does that relationship come about? Do they come to you? Are you guys doing some kind of outreach to find these students? How does that happen?
Yeah, usually when we go into a country, the way that we find our students is, first of all, we usually get an invitation from a major leader there in the country who has a network of pastors, and then they will approach the pastors once they know what we're looking for. And most of these churches have leaders who want to be in full-time ministry. And so we ask the pastors, do you have people? And the pastors often can't train them, and they can't pay them to send them out. And that's where we come in. We say, well, we'll train them, and then we'll give them a stipend so they can be in full-time ministry. So the churches are able to send them out as their church planters, and they are submissive to that mother church, but they're also considered our church planters. We're paying them and we're training them. And so we're sending them out as well. But there's a built-in accountability because the pastors, they're submissive to that lead pastor. That pastor is not on our payroll. The church planters are, but the lead pastor isn't. So they're accountable to that lead pastor. And then we have a field supervisor that's also checking in on the work and talking with the lead pastors to ensure that work is getting done well. But we find them through the church networks that exist in these countries. So when someone comes to us, it's rare that someone would come to us and say, I want to start a church here. It would probably be if we have a bona fide seminary graduate that is wanting to be a part, we generally would put them into a place where they're teaching instead, where they're equipping, simply because our philosophy, our focus is more on training and sending out the local indigenous leaders. So we've got a missionary who's in Spain who went and learned the language, and he actually went through our program, and he's one of our graduates as well, but he teaches all over the place. And that's been a huge asset to us. He's equipping the Spaniards to reach the Spaniards. And so we generally put people more in an equipping role to teach the BTCP in these different countries, because we need teachers. We need people who will teach in these different places. So
oh, spectacular! It's so fun, and this is kind of recreating the joy that I had the first time hearing about this when we were having lunch. So fun to see the varied work of the Lord in these different places, and the Lord is at work, and the Lord is working wondrously through you guys, and is doing the same in our totally different context and model, and it's just such an encouragement to see it. It takes all kinds, and the church is being strengthened, and I love that. You've touched on this, but kind of there are three unique things that you list that sets you apart on your website: evangelism, accelerated church planting, and leadership training. I know we've kind of scattershoot talked about those, but you give us the brief 1, 2, 3 here for what makes you all unique.
I think at the core is evangelism. We want more people to know Christ, and we want to make more disciples. Statistically, the fastest and most efficient way to spread the gospel is through church planting. And the most effective way that we've found to plant churches is to equip those who already know the language and the culture of the country that they're in, because they're indigenous. And so when we equip them with the tools, they plant churches faster, and then the gospel is spread quicker throughout the country as a result. And so the Lord is using that. We're not the only ministry that's doing something like this. There's others that do this as well. So, I'm not saying we're the only, but we found that the Lord, one thing that I do think my dad has is just this passion and this kind of militant, keep pressing forward, sort of a drive that I haven't seen that in a lot of other ministries, but he really has driven a lot of our of our work. You talked about Paul earlier. A lot of people have said you sound like Paul. You're very, let's keep going, let's press forward, and there's no apology about what we're doing and all that. So and that's been a big factor that has helped us get off the ground. I've told people I would not have been able to start World Link and keep it going doing it this way before. I don't think that was my gift set. Now my gift set is more building the infrastructure to help us to be stable long-term, and developing out relationships that will be key relationships to help us grow. So anyway, it's awesome. The Lord in his timing and in his providence has been working throughout all this. So
amazing.
That's spectacular. Okay. So I mean, that is the resonant theme here. It's just the beautiful work of the Lord and all of these wonderful ways, specifically in this conversation through World Link. It's such an encouragement, Manny. And I know it'll be exciting for our audience just to hear about what the Lord's doing. And I would imagine there are going to be some interested, hey, how can I be a part? So I have, again, just listed your website, call to action. How can people get involved? But I have here 5 that I found on your website, and maybe if you want to highlight what is the most immediate way to be involved or help. So support a church planter, volunteer, join a tour or a short-term mission trip, and then subscribe to the newsletter just to keep up. So, and we can all do that one quite easily. What are the other, kind of give us the back of the envelope for how to be involved?
So one way that some people want to be a part is by helping to fund one of these church planters as they're going through the program. So it's helping to give a certain amount. And
do you have that certain amount? Is there like it's
$65. $65 a month helps to keep a church planter in that keeps them, that pays their bills for the month in most cases. and it allows them to get the training that they need during the program, and that helps to plan. And what the goal for each of these, the requirement for each of these, except for in Spain, but in all the other places, there's the ability to do this, is to plant 3 churches each that year. And so if you're funding someone at $65 a month, you're paying them to be in full-time ministry. You're paying all of their monthly bills, which comes out to something like $2 a day is what you're helping to cover all of their expenses. But then also you're helping to plant 3 churches in 3 different communities in that area. So,
man, that's amazing. It's amazing. It is what Jesus says, making friends with mammon. I mean, this is really strategic investment that has a beautiful return. It sounds like, man, that's really cool. So what does volunteering look like? What about a tour and short-term mission?
So volunteer, we have people, most of the time it's pastors and teachers who will go and teach in different places. So that's volunteering. We have some opportunities.
Do you teach through a translator, or do you have to know the language?
No, we can do through a translator. We often do through translators when they come from the States. They know the language. That's all the better.
Sure. Yeah.
And so, but yeah. So some is that we also have. We're growing. So we have lots of needs as far as video, photo, website, tech, all these different things that we're trying to do to grow our network right now. Those are different things, and people are helping in these different areas. We also have trips that go all the time to different parts of the world. So I go based on the groups of people that say, hey, listen, we'd like to talk about taking our men's Bible study group to Venezuela. There's 10 of us, and we want to go and we want to help to paint the buildings that the government is giving you guys there, and then share the gospel with the people at the end of the day when they come for a big celebration, things like that. Yeah. We can do things like that. We have groups that are wanting to go to Nepal, Philippines, all over the place. And so we just adjust based on who wants to go where. And then we try to mobilize people to go. But we're always saying, listen, you have a group of influence, talk with your group of influence about wanting to go and being a part, and we'll craft the mission trip according to your gift set. And the cool part about the mission trips is that we're partnering with the church planters wherever we go. Yep. So it 10X is your impact, because the church planters have been preparing the soil for when we arrive, and then they're doing the follow-up long after we're gone. And so it really does have a significant impact. You're not just going and sharing the gospel and then going from there. We're going to a place where the church planter is already working. They're inviting all of the guests that they've already been talking and cultivating, and then they come and we have a really impactful time. So,
man,
if
that's
I could
great.
Just ask another question.
Yeah, go ahead.
So you're in a pretty unique position, Manny, in that you're in charge of infrastructure, you're in charge of like the foundation work for World Link, and you're not necessarily being rushed to, take over from your father. Yep. So if you could kind of give us like 1 or 2 things that you see as being like goals for World Link 10 years down the road, like 10 years down the road, we have accomplished this. What would those things be? 2 or 3 things that you could think of?
Yeah. One thing would be that we have consistent funding that is coming through. We're trying to develop more of a long-term partnership with people, even if it's at a lower level, like $65 a month, instead of having to rely solely on some of the larger gifts or some of our larger donors, but that we have a widespread group of people that is a part of what we're doing and helping, which, 65 isn't that big of a deal for a lot of people. And so something like that, I'd rather have 1,000 people giving at $65 a month than having one person who's giving $65,000 a month. And, first of all, not only does it make it easier if one drops off, I can go and get someone else, but it gets more people involved in the work. And I think especially with the younger generations, there's a disconnect with missions. Younger generations today, it's not that they don't love missions, but there's a little bit of a disconnect. It used to be that you could write a newsletter and send it out, and people would just give based on that. But now the younger generations, we're seeing they scrutinize more. They want to see more about what's going on all throughout the work. They want to see it from start to finish. They want to feel the impact of what they're doing. And so that's what we're working on, developing a model that will help get the different generations here in the States involved in missions in a more impactful way for them and for what's going on overseas. And so that's one thing, is expanding our appeal. I think also I really want to make sure that we are supporting well our church planters all throughout. They've struggled with the same things that we struggle with. They get lonely. They're tempted. They have struggles with their family. And in some cases, they have struggles with the wife because of the fact that they are in ministry all the time. They're working all the time. They have that struggle. And so, they're just because they're overseas doesn't mean they sometimes they think about it differently, but they have the same struggles we do. And that's something I'd like to develop over time, is not just a go and plant, but we also want to make sure that we're developing healthy church plants as well, and healthy leaders that will be able to multiply themselves and other people as well as we're going. Right. So we don't want to multiply an unhealthy leader. We want to make sure that they don't just have the academics, but that they also have the heart for the Lord. And we found in a lot of places legalism sprouts up. We found a lot of places there are different heresies, and so we're working on correcting these different things. But there are weeds that are sown all throughout that we're trying to work to stabilize. So I think 10 years from now, I'd like to have just a healthy group of people that we see that are going and growing and doing well. I feel like we've got a great group of people right now. We just need to develop out the system of support for them. So
Man, that's awesome, Manny. Really, really appreciate what you're doing and your commitment, modeling your father's commitment, and so many others it takes to really see this through. It's really exciting. Thanks so much for being here. In addition to thanks for the work that you're doing. Thanks for your time here. And we will hopefully be able to channel some folks your way and get involved. That's really wonderful. So
thank you so much. It really is a blessing to be able to talk with you guys and share. And I appreciate the opportunity to be able to share with your audience as well what the Lord is doing through this ministry. So thank you guys.
Absolutely. All right.
Thanks, Manny. We appreciate you.
Oh, yeah. Sorry to interrupt there. Thanks everybody for listening. Really appreciate your time and your interest in World Link Ministries and what Manny's doing there, what the Lord's doing in and through World Link. We'll pick up next time with another fun episode about something we're not quite sure yet, but we'll see you soon. I'd like to remind you that if you have any questions or comments with regards to the podcast content or any suggestions for future podcast topics, you can email us at podcast@pillarseminary.org. I can't promise that we'll necessarily get to it as a podcast topic, but we will do our best to interact with you and get your questions answered and respond to your comments in a timely fashion.
Welcome to the Pillar Podcast, a ministry of Pillar Seminary for contextual leadership. Our goal is to equip listeners to become better readers of Scripture and more skillful leaders in their local churches and ministries. If you would like to learn more about Pillar Seminary and sign up to receive exclusive content from Pillar's faculty, please visit pillarseminary.org.